Begin recording and welcome everyone to April 14th. How the year is going fast, right? And this being a training year and so much going on. So welcome everyone. So again, just as we were talking about here before, I'd been promoting No Mow May for several years at our May presentation. And as we've been commenting, is that this year, a lot of discussion, a lot of articles are debating the value of this, the worth of this. And we wanted to put Terry on the spot, for her article that she just wrote, for the Senior Times talking about No Mow May. And Terry, you want to talk some, amplify in your article and, tell us more? And you're on mute. Yeah.
Sorry, I was on the phone with one of our trainees who has a technical problem that needs to get worked out because she really wants to volunteer at the show. So No Mow May, it's a bit of a misnomer because no mow is supposed to help create an environment when insects and pollinators are really active. When the plants in our lawns are blooming, hopefully. That is, if we don't use a lot of chemicals to create golf course lawns. So if you're into a golf course lawn, No Mow May doesn't make any sense because because it's like a grass desert. However, if you take a more forgiving approach to a lawn, like help me, Val, the lawn you have.
You're on mute. Yeah. Val, you're on mute.
Yeah.
An eco lawn sort of thing that has clover for nitrogen fixing and broadleaf short flowers that attract pollinators, right?
Yeah, thank you. I just couldn't retrieve the term for it. I have one of those that I didn't plant. I just let the English daisies, the little short English daisies, some buttercups, some dandelions. I have this delightful little new kind of hardy geranium that has shown up this year that I don't remember from past years, but it's got a beautiful little flower and it spreads, not very tall. So you can end up with an eco lawn if you just don't use a lot of chemicals. And in that case, No Mow May can make sense. Some things that I was reading, Oregon State has a really good article on No Mow May. Also says that probably a No Mow April in our region is actually better than May. That in April, our pollinators are out and they're looking for stuff to eat. So anyway, I enjoyed the research. Now, if you like a golf course lawn, one of the suggestions is to plant other things in your garden that help pollinators. And one of the things you can do for bumblebees is plant a plant that blooms in like late winter, very early spring, and one that blooms in fall. So heather is an example. You can find heather varieties that bloom late winter, very early spring, and there are other varieties that bloom in fall. And those are important habitats for bumblebees. So that was also something I learned from the OSU site. So anyway, it's just realizing what your priorities are and planting to help our little critters that need more habitat.
Thanks for sharing. And indeed, it's just, this is a significant, it's significant that we understand this. And of course, it's significant that we as master gardeners really talk about this, right? And talk about the fact that lawn as a habitat is the least productive. And so anything we can do to reduce or eliminate our lawn and replace that with with more, wildlife friendly, pollinator friendly plants is so significant, and frankly so very vital, as we recognize the importance of pollination to our very existence. So anyway, I wanted to also put up a slide recognizing Terry's passing. That was a very nice piece in the E-News of this past Friday, if you guys caught it. Terry will certainly be missed. I mean, I certainly recall her very sincerely and, throughout and her diligence, her loyalty, her enthusiasm. And Major, think about what she taught us with respect to gardening for the handicapped, and recognizing that accessible gardening is a thing, and it's something we actually can be thinking about in our gardening practices and in our accommodation for individuals with disabilities. Any other thoughts, comments regarding Terry and Terry's passing?
She certainly made a mark on the Elma Demo garden, and she is in front of a raised bed that John Coogan built especially for her, so she could plant and work in it while she was in her little speedy wheelchair thing. So yeah, she will really be missed, and just her energy and willingness. Yeah, she will be missed.
I have to say, this is Karen. When I was doing plant clinics here in Montesano, she was a great volunteer at plant clinic, very knowledgeable about plants. And as long as she could get there easily, she was totally willing to come and help. And so I really enjoyed working with her. She was in my class, actually. The same, 2008. So yeah, big loss.
Other thoughts, other remembrances? Well, she definitely will be missed. And it indeed, Val, as you pointed out, is in Elma, her garden, her little garden bed, right, will be treasured, and that'll be at a memorial of sorts, part of her legacy.
Yeah.
Okay, so for today, we've got a lot to go through. There's a lot of our regular stuff. As I mentioned, Dr. Robin O'Quinn from Eastern Washington University will be joining us here. And lots of announcements, lots of preparation, because this week is this week is, if you don't, let's put it this way, if you don't get your volunteer hours in this week for the year, just where have you been? You must be sleeping. Okay, so just a very few birthdays. In fact, this month has the least birthdays of any of our months. So I want everyone to be thinking about what your parents were doing or not doing, 9 months prior, because it just isn't happening for May. May births is not happening, right? So happy birthday to Chris, Rick, and Eileen. And and of course, the whole major focus for this month is on the show. But not to forget that we have a board meeting tonight. Board meeting tonight at 5:30 p.m. Everyone's welcome to join. Study group is going to be the day after Memorial Day on Tuesday, May 28th. It'll be in Tokeland. And so it's going to be a very special day. You saw the write-up in E-News. But I really encourage everybody to, if you've not been down to Tokeland recently or visited Tokeland, and seen the coast and so forth, carpool, come on down and see what Travis is doing. Okay. Midge, any other comment you want to have regarding study group and Travis's, our visit to Travis?
Well, I just want to reiterate what you said. If you haven't been to Tokeland, come on down. Travis is eager to show everybody what he's been doing, and he's been working hard in that garden, and also in the preparing the fertilizer that they're harvesting from the invasive green crab. So he's got a lot of interesting stuff to knowledge to impart to us. So please do come.
And it's
And I
as
do encourage people to carpool.
and it's an opportunity then to visit the Shoalwater Bay Tribe Community Center and have lunch there, as was
Right,
noted.
yes, yeah.
Okay, so just a quick reminder for everybody here is that, you know, we are all master gardeners and we all adhere to the precepts and principles of the Master Gardener program as set forth by WSU Extension. We also convene here today as an independent 501c3 nonprofit corporation registered in the state of Washington, and specifically aiming at delivering funds and programs that support our WSU extension programs. So it's a very important function that we come together as a nonprofit in order to support the financing and support the activities that are needed for the foundation. We have an elected board in the foundation. Elizabeth leads us. Mike is our president-elect. You know, the rest of us fill out the particular officer roles. You know, we take these officer roles seriously because, again, these are officers, you know, of a public corporation. So transparency in our operations, in our elections, in our finances, right, is so very critical. We have, because of the massive size of our geography, 3,500 square miles, right? We have 3 sub-regions, right, that we enable groups of our master gardeners to convene separately. The directors of those regions, right, are selected by by individuals in those regions, and Renee, Valerie, and Sushila lead those 3 regions. And then, of course, you know, we need a faculty liaison connection into WSU Extension. Tony Gwynn retired last year. That position still has to be filled. That responsibility still has to be fulfilled. We have 2 coordinators, Wendy and Alina. Alina is moving south. You know, she wants to have no mow January in Reno. And so you know, we'll definitely be looking for another volunteer coordinator come 2025. And you know, I think both as Wendy, Alina, Sharon, and Brenda, who have all served in this role, will tell you it's a gratifying. It's a lot of work, but it's a gratifying experience and very much worth it. So reach out to Wendy or Alina if interested. Okay, and then a quick reminder, of course, is that you know, we have a new website. You know, so it's the PNWMG, Pacific Northwest mastergardener.org will take you to this new website foundation. Get big thanks out to Aaron, Bev, and the whole Chris and the whole team that helped prepare this. And there's, you know, two clicks, right? 2 buttons on the home page. One that takes us to the volunteer portal where all of our documentation is stored, and the other that goes to Give Pulse, where our hours need to be recorded. And this becomes so incredibly important, especially as we get into this very busy week. It is imperative that all of our hours be recorded in Give Pulse. You know, all of our hours be recorded in Give Pulse if there's any issue or hazard or injury. WSU, of course, indemnifies and provides insurance to us as a Master Gardener program, but only if the hours are entered into Give Pulse. So it's incredibly necessary that we be diligent in entering those hours. Alina, Wendy, Brenda, any comment on it? Give Pulse hours. How are we doing, you know, this year to date in terms of getting hours in? And you're on mute, Alina.
Sorry. Wendy and I are figuring out who, you know, what am I trying, verifying the hours. Wendy has taken a lot of that responsibility. And as a result, she talked to me, and we are advocating another reason for submitting your hours is that we are going to be sending a monthly update to the commissioners, to Dan Teutenberg in Elma, and to Sue Carbaugh, who will be forwarding it to the commissioners in Pacific County. And what Wendy came up with the idea, and I totally support it. We want the commissioners in both counties to know how many hours our master gardeners are volunteering each month, and in what areas, how many master gardeners are actually working in plant clinics and in workshops and in demo gardens, and what is the outcome impacts for all of this work. We feel, Wendy feels, and I share her opinion, that the commissioners don't know who we are. They don't know what our impacts are. They don't know what the outcomes are of our volunteers working, the outcomes to the communities. And as a result, we're not at the top of their radar. And this is especially true when it comes to Pacific County, because unless the commissioners or someone else in Master Gardeners is able to tell WSU, hey, look at all these, what these people are doing, and they really need your support, we will not get a educator liaison in the near future. So this is our push now, to have you enter your hours each month so that we can say, hey guys, and ladies, we are making an impact in our communities. We want you to know about it.
Thank you much. So let's get those hours in. Okay, so other announcements as we jump into things here. I've got a lot of things going on, but and we'll come back to that. So under the May to-dos, OSU is proud to talk about, hey, let's get these vegetables planted when soils are above 70 degrees. Not going to happen anytime soon around here. So I just checked this morning. These are the 7-day average soil temperatures on at WSU Ag WeatherNet, and we're still far behind, even with that hot spell of last week, right? So they're climbing. They're significantly warmer than last month, right? But we've still got a ways to go before we are really prudently ready for outdoor planting. It is significant, though, as it is certainly ready to get ready, and to check out irrigation centers. I noticed that I had one faucet that just because it's so much exposed to the salt air here, it just disintegrated. I actually accidentally hit it, with a solid object, and it shattered. The faucet did. So this is a time to be checking all of your plumbing, your irrigation and so forth. Are we ready for when irrigation needs to happen? And given how dry it's been, over the last, we just had 0.03 of an inch of rain here. That's all we've had in the last week. So we're getting ready to start thinking about, about irrigating. And it, of course, as noted in the e-news, by the way, is that we're invasives and pests, right, are coming up. And Mike, I think that was you that noted in the e-news, right, that the state's about ready to engage in a spray program to take care of some of these, these very invasive and very voraciously hungry moths that are coming into the neighborhood. Other May to-dos, maintenance and cleanups, if needed, fertilize, rhododendrons. It's interesting about this comment about established and healthy plants. We were just at the demo garden yesterday in Owaco and dug out. It was very clear that this red flowering currant just wasn't going to make it, and so this is a time to pull the ones out that are just have suffered, and it's just time to think about choosing disease-resistant plants relative to roses and other plants as we're thinking about. Under planting, of course, lots of opportunities for for planting and for thinking about plants that are going to be able to be divided, bulb plants, things that are still going to be comfortable in this still cool but rapidly warming soil. I think, as I indicated, the soils are rapidly warming. They're up to like even 3 degrees from just like 2 or 3 weeks ago. But they've still got a ways to go here. But you can see that OSU is recommending for the Oregon coast, there's a lot of opportunities for getting a lot of stuff in the ground, if we indeed can control for precipitation and other issues. And then, of course, pest. This is the time to start thinking about when the pests come out. And as we well know from all of our time in plant clinics, right? That folks are eagerly questioning us. What do I want to spray? What can I use? What sort of pesticide is going to be most appropriate to kill all these little pests that I want to get rid of here. And as we've seen here in these recommendations, there's so many cultural practices that can avoid the use of chemicals. And especially for all the insects that are beneficial to the garden and our gardening activity. So any other thoughts, by the way, any other comments in terms of gardening practices that are appropriate for now? Rhonda, you have your hand up. And you're on mute.
I just wanted to share, in case no one else heard this, but both in Thurston County and right near the Mud Bay area, and then in Mount Vernon, the state has found that invasive spongy moth.
Yeah.
And it is very invasive, and they are actually beginning to spray for it. And for as many people as we have traveled through the Mud Bay area on into the harbor is substantial. It's worth noting that area, they are beginning to do aerial sprays.
That's a very good point, because even this weekend, right, we will be drawing a lot of people from the Olympia area, right? So a lot of people will be coming to our homeland here, and could be very potentially carrying that moth with it.
Especially if they show up at the plant clinic.
Yeah. Other comments, other questions, other gardening practices that we're engaged in as we get ready for this, we get ready for summer. Okay. So another shout out, by the way, with respect to soil testing, it's again, this is do as we say, not as we do. I think most of us are probably deficient in terms of getting our soil tested regularly. But I tell you, as we know from greeting people at the plant clinics, people come to us without any awareness, or very little awareness of what's in their soil, of of nutrient value and so forth. I look forward, part of the thing I look forward to at the Home and Garden Show is talking about Quire and biochar, both of which we will have at the Home and Garden Show, because it is interesting how easily it is to engage people in talking about their soil, when you're showing them and talking to them about and making them aware of the importance of nutrients, of the importance of soil structure. So, okay. Other announcements. I wanted to, make sure that Terry, you had plenty of time to talk about the show coming up this week, because it definitely is this is all hands on deck.
That's an understatement. Volunteer sign up is going well. We really could use some extra help though on Sunday. Sunday we're really light, which is not unusual, but we really could use some extra volunteers. The other thing is, if you can't volunteer to help, it would be really wonderful if you can attend some of the presentations, because it's always gratifying for our presenters to have a good audience at their presentations. So consider that. Or if you are volunteering, consider factoring in some time to attend one of the presentations, because our presenters are really terrific, and they put a lot of time and effort into preparing for these presentations. So if you haven't volunteered and you have time, please email me or call me, or reach out to Rhonda or Robin, someone who can help you get signed up, because it really ends up being a lot of fun. And most people may start out kind of feeling shy about signing up, but then once you do it, you find out just how gratifying it is, what a happy environment it is. We hear that all the time from our vendors. It's the reason why a lot of our vendors just keep coming back, because they just think the atmosphere of our show is special. So please sign up and please try it, because I think once you do, you'll come back for more shows. Rhonda and Robin, do you want to add anything?
No, just that, I guess, just that we do need volunteers at, and when the volunteers show up, go around and ask what you can do, because sometimes I know, like, you and I and Rhonda are busy, so busy doing our thing that we don't notice that there's somebody standing beside us waiting to be told what to do, right? So ask, say, hey, I'm here, what can I do? And we can usually find something to make them busy. But I know lots of times that happens to me. I'm running around doing all this stuff and I don't realize there's 3 or 4 people running behind me, like waiting to do something, but I'm not telling them what to do because I'm busy thinking about what I need to do. So anyway, and we are full. I had another cancellation this morning though from health reasons, but I was able to fill it. So two this week have canceled for health. Well, one passed away actually, sadly, but and I was able to fill them. So we're still going strong.
The only thing I will add is that I listed everything that I need to have done on a piece of paper. If you come find me, I'll just send you to the piece of paper and you can pick an item and get started on it. I listed stuff on the home and the garden side, so there's no reason for anybody to wait around. We've got lists going that tell you what's priorities. Come and help us, come and laugh and have a good time. Meet vendors on Friday, and this is going to be probably our biggest show ever. And I really thank Katie for all the promotion work she's done on getting it out there. Terry for getting it to the radio stations. And then all of those that are helping with getting the signs up on the highways and the byways. That's such a tough job and it's appreciated. And if you even only have time to put up one road sign, it would be helpful to us. So ask and we shall deliver a job for you.
I do have a question for Terry real quick. Did you find somebody to do Elma? Because if not,
No.
Okay.
No, I haven't found anybody that can do Elma.
Is there anyone on listening that could help me do Elma? This drive down the road, put signs. It's nice to have 2 people, one to drive and one to walk along the road. Anyone?
Robin, I'll be happy to drive you.
Okay.
This is Val.
Okay. Hi, Val. Thanks. I just got to get my hands on the signs now.
Let me know when you'll be ready.
I think quick reminder regarding signs. Remember that anything along the state rights of way will be pulled, right?
Right. We can't put anything on the freeways or the on and off ramps, just through town.
Yep.
I just need to get the signs now.
I was thinking that it could happen on Wednesday because I'm driving to Elma on Wednesday, so I can bring all the signs to you if you'd like.
Well, all the ones for our area. Yeah.
Well, that's pretty much where we put the yard signs.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. That'd be great. And Val, can you do it?
I'd like to offer one more thing to everybody. We are doing at the very back of the venue. You're going to see a lot of change back there. Robin and I have worked really hard to make that part of the venue brighter, more people, more activities. And one of the things we're setting up is a photo booth where people can stroll back. And if they want to just rest their bum for a few minutes on the seat, it will be decorated with plants and landscaping material, as well as an arbor and patio paver work done by a couple of our vendors. And it's a fun place just to go back and have a picture taken that you were at our show and all the pretty things that are there. Come back and take your own picture and then post it on social media.
I have one more thing to say too. I just remembered regarding Mike Harvia and the sharpening of tools. Since he will be there sharpening tools, instructing people how to do it, he'll need tools to sharpen. So us master gardeners can bring our flat-edged shovels and things for him to sharpen and teach other people how to do it.
Mike, do you want to share more about what sort of tools you'd prefer to receive and what you'll be doing there?
Sure, I'll be setting up a tool sharpening booth, and I'd like flat edge tools. Some of the items that I will not sharpen would be like chainsaws, chains, not sharpening, hedge trimmers where you have moving parts. I'm worried about you take it apart, you break it, you buy it. And so minimal disassembly, even if I can take apart pruning shears and hand shears and simple items like that, I'll have a way to clean up the metal, sand the wood, wipe everything down, take off the rust, put a nice edge on it. And I've got painter's tape to put over the sharp edge of the shovel so people can carry it around somewhat safely and be able to not cause any 911 calls. But it'll be a lot of fun. I've got big vision in my head, and I'll see if I can pull it off.
Midge, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I'd just like to add one thing about the speakers. In the past, it seems like the interns or trainees or whatever have been reluctant to go in and listen to the speakers because they're afraid to leave their post or whatever, or they're not getting credit for it. I'd just like to encourage everybody to go in and listen to the speakers. They have some valuable information for all of us. So if you're in charge of a group of trainees or whatever, please encourage them to go in and listen to the speakers that they're interested in. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay. Alina, you have your hand up.
Wanted to give a shout out to all the volunteers, the Master Gardener volunteers who showed up at the May 4th class with Jenny Glass. And I wanted to give Mike an opportunity to just, with a couple of minutes, just talk about what happened that day and then let people know about what's happening in June.
Well, we had a very successful May 4th meeting with Jenny Glass. We had about 30 trainees that were there. About 16 or so of the master gardeners, very well attended, lots of cooperation. Had a good Subway lunch. Everybody was very receptive. It was a lot of fun putting it together, and certainly this was a team event. This isn't a one-person show, and a lot of people made a difference and were real game changers. Rhonda was a big game changer in helping set everything up and take down, and Elizabeth. So it was a big success. Coming up in June, we have had a big change up in our speaker lineup, but we've got that under control. So this will be a Zoom session, and we'll have pesticides. We'll be talking about integrated pest management. Hoping to have Daniel Freeze, the Wildland Regional member for the Pacific Northwest area, be a guest speaker. So we've got quite a lineup of professional people that are going to give us what we need to know. And Dan will have some Firewise paperwork, and it's going to be pretty well involved. So thank you.
Any other comments regarding training? Well, a reminder, I wanted to go back and talk about this at, and talk about the July 20th plant sale. We are 65 days away. So this is very much the time to get, to get going here. Remember that it's a big moneymaker for us, but it's also hugely appreciated by the people that come to the plant tour. They're eager to buy, stuff that's blooming, stuff that's interesting. And so it's a great opportunity for us to be thinking about what we can divide, separate, start to grow, and have ready to be in proper form in just a little over 2 months away. So I know it's difficult to start thinking about the plant the garden tour while we still have this very busy week ahead of us here. But is very much the time to be wrestling with this. Okay. Other announcements, other comments. Anything else we need to be covering here?
I have one question. I have a vendor who is handicapped. They were there last year. They hired our friend who has now since passed away to help them unload and load their trailer. It's not their trailer. They have a huge lift that lifts the big heavy stuff down in the pavilion. Anyway, she contacted me and wants to hire somebody to help her unload and load. And she said, we will pay them. So I don't know exactly what to do in this situation. I said, well, maybe I can find a master gardener that could help do it. And then she's like, oh, we will pay them. So does anybody know? I mean, I don't know what to do exactly. I can't think of anyone that I can hire. I can think of a few teenage boys, but they're at school in the middle of the day on Friday, you know? So. Anybody have any ideas? I mean, can a master gardener help and have them be paid?
Sure. Just don't worry your badge.
So if there's one of the guys there that will willing to go over and help them unload their and get paid for it, we can do that on Friday.
Technically, Robin, we're not, if we go out and give advice for landscaping or
Right.
to the public, we're not allowed to be paid. I don't know how this would work. A liability would cover, liability insurance would cover if the volunteer hurt themselves during this job. I don't know about the payment. This is out of my purview. I can look it up and see, but it would really have to be, as far as I'm concerned, and I understand, it would have to be not paying a master gardener. It would have to be paying a volunteer to help who is a citizen, part of the community. And if it happens to be volunteer, well, that would be money under the table, I guess. I don't know. That's a tough question to answer. You couldn't do it as a master gardener, let me put it that way, okay? And if you don't do it as a master gardener and you get injured, then you have your liability insurance, but the money would not be able to be recorded as a master gardener.
Right.
So do what you want, okay? As Tony used to say, I don't want to hear about it.
Well, if there's a master gardener that's there and willing to go over and help them, then unload it, that's fine. I just don't want to ask somebody to do it. If it's a really hard job and they could get paid for it, I don't know.
And so, Robin, that's what I would recommend, is that maybe when she's there and starts to unload, and if she still is in need of an individual, maybe we just put out a call for volunteers that we could perhaps help at that time.
Okay.
But the money is what causes
Well,
the problem.
yeah. But again, let's not worry about the money. I think if we're all master gardeners, we don't have to worry about getting on a W-2 here for a little unloading effort. I'd be very welcome to make a donation to the master gardeners if indeed that's the case. But let's just see how it plays out.
That
And
sounds good.
I would encourage, by the way, if she indeed feels it really needs this assistance, I'm sure there are some temporary staffing agencies, right, that she probably could contract to actually get formal help for this. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So anything else we need to cover here before this very busy week? Okay, so again, another reminder here to get these hours recognized. You'll see in the chat that Brenda put a note here, is that we're still seeing, you know, maybe only about half of all of our members are regularly entering the hours, right? You know, and so it's very important, especially as we spoke earlier, to get these hours entered so that we are fully covered under the liability provisions of WSU extension. Okay, so thanks much. Okay. So with this, then I want to recognize once again that we have the foci that WSU Extension has put on to where we as master gardeners are concentrating, are spending our efforts in terms of emphasizing our outreach to the public, and these areas, right? You know, including plant biodiversity as a key theme is an important emphasis. That is just, and again, just going back, we were just going all the way back to the beginning. We were talking about lawns and as a habitat, as the least beneficial habitat, and talking about practices in terms of no mow May. And so with that, right, I want to turn the presentation over to Dr. Robin O'Quinn, all the way from Cheney, Washington, right, you know, in Eastern Washington University, who, by the way, had a pretty good run in the basketball tournament this past year too. So kudos to Eastern Washington for coming up and making some things happen there. But Robin, I'm so pleased we finally get to have you here, because as I mentioned, we consider you the one of the radical, kind of the one of the radical, native plant enthusiast, right? Here in the western side of the United States. So let me go ahead and stop my share and open it up to you to introduce yourself and your program.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I am delighted to be here, and give me a minute to get myself together here for you. I'm having a little bit of issues with my computer, but hopefully we can get this and share my screen here. How are we doing? Can you guys see my screen yet?
We see your screen. We see the PowerPoint presentation there. Yeah, not the.
Is that good?
There you go. We're good. We're seeing your presenter mode now.
You're seeing my presenter mode, which is not what I want you to see. So let's swap the displays. How's that?
Now we're cooking.
Good?
Now we're cooking.
Okay. And can everyone hear me fine?
Coming through.
All right. So again, delighted to be here with you today, and thought I'd share a little bit about what we've been doing. And I picked this title because I was trying to convince my graduate student to use this in her talk, Pants Before Shoes, exploring the role of soil biological diversity to native plant success and restoration. And I'm going to move away from this because I think this animation is a little bit annoying but relevant. So here's what I'd like to do today. I want to talk with you guys about the EW Prairie Restoration Project. I think many of you may know about it, but I'll try to answer any questions and characterize a little bit more what we're aiming to accomplish with this. And I want to tie that into research that's been happening in my lab, the seed increase garden and the goals for that, the undergraduate research that I have going on in the lab, the graduate research I have going on in the lab. And then I'll take a little pause there and we can see where we are on time and whether or not folks are interested in having me sort of articulate my seed collecting protocols, or whether we want to just have a conversation. I would invite any of you to jump in, unmute yourself, and ask a question. whatever you're comfortable with, because I'm here in my comfortable home office. I don't have any distractions, and I'm more interested in doing what works for you guys than my own agenda. So I hope I hope I'm doing what you wanted, and if you want to hear about or talk about anything else, we can do that. Okay? So I want to begin then by saying that you'll notice that we specifically are not including the term pollutes in our conversation about our prairie restoration project. And that's deliberate, and I'm trying to get people to stop using that term. I've included on this slide, as you can see, a sort of distribution map for what constitutes these prairie ecosystems of the inland Pacific Northwest. And we up here in Cheney, if you guys can you see my cursor?
Mm-mm.
No? Let me try it over. No?
Here.
Can you see it now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, we do.
So we're up here in Cheney, and so we're just a little bit north of what has been described as this core area of these prairie ecosystems that are on deep lethal soils. But obviously people have different interpretations, and these dashed lines illustrate what we might think about as extensions. The long and short of this map, which is kind of crappy, I'll admit, comes off of the Palouse Prairie Foundation website, is that we're talking about an extensive area, and it is the homeland for a lot of different tribes. So, for example, the Palis tribe was, in fact, and I think there are maybe only a few members, if any, left, but they were much further to the south. And we are engaging in our prairie restoration on the ancestral homelands of the Spokane tribe of Indians. And because we want them to be our collaborators, and because we are respectful of the fact that it is their ancestral homelands, we don't use that term. So I'd like you guys to think about that. Maybe if you have some terminology in your geographic region that maybe discounts the tribal or the ancestral tribal ownership, maybe we can rethink that as we move forward. And in particular, this prairie restoration project that we're engaging with involves a number of aspects, or different aspects, of our Spokane tribal group. But I have been working most directly with the Spokane Tribal Network, and in particular their food sovereignty project. So that allows me the opportunity to work with Dr. Melody Wynn, who's a Spokane tribal elder, and she is working diligently to try to return native food systems to her people, because there are a lot of reasons we want to do that: cultural reasons, health reasons, etc. So what we're aiming to do is to restore about 120 acres of former farmland. And this began as a sustainability initiative. And in fact, the director of the project is actually the director of the Office of Sustainability, Dr. Eric Budsberg. And it really emerged as a goal to sequester carbon. A previous president signed us up for a sort of reduction in our carbon footprint at the university level to levels that I can't recite to you what those specifically were, but this was just as begun as an initiative to sequester carbon. And but it's become very cool because it's a campus-wide initiative that's really aiming to do a lot more than just restore the prairie, it's envisioned as this outdoor learning laboratory, this recreation area, and this green space. There was initially talk about establishing a U.S. track and field distance cross-country course on the site, so that we were actually would be able to have competitions of that level. We've got biking, mountain biking courses envisioned for the site. So really cool. The campus at Cheney just doesn't really have a green space either. So there's no place to sort of walk to get a respite from sort of the day-to-day activities of university life. So if this works, I will try to move us on to this website. I can bounce in and out of this. We'll see if this works so that you guys can see this. This is what our, can you guys see this, or do I need to do a screen share, additional screen share?
We're seeing it, living laboratory, right?
Yeah, great. So you can simply move through this and get a better sense of how we're trying to, this is a nice map that illustrates the size of that 120 acres and its proximity to our actual physical campus, what it currently is looking like with some of this drone footage, and then just the sort of folks that have been participating. So any of you who have additional interest, I would encourage you to cruise around on the website and see what we've got up and running here. Lots of little videos. There's Eric taking some seed collections out in the field with us. This video, if you have a chance, I'm not going to play it for you now, but this is a former student of mine, Sarah Hill. She's just adorable. I love her to death. She is currently the Seeds of Success curator for the Bureau of Land Management. She works with Peggy Alwell over in Boise. So she's really stayed within the field and is continuing to do fantastic work. And then just some oversight of what the restoration is aiming to accomplish. Okay, so hopefully if you guys are more curious and you want to donate some money, we'd be happy to take your money. All right. I see that somebody has something to say in the chat, so let me see.
Oh, I just posted the link you just had up there.
Very good. Excellent. Yeah. Okay, thank you, Kelly. All right. So with that said, it turns out that restoring native habitats is not trifling, and it is not easy for a lot of reasons. One reason is that we can simply lack the plant materials that we need. We're interested in having genetically appropriate seed for starting plants for the scope of our project, and those are often not commercially available. Okay, that's particularly true as we get into the forbs or the annuals that we would expect to find in these ecosystems. They just aren't commercially available for us. There's a lot of reasons for that. The BLM actually produced some very, very nice a very nice video about the sort of status of their concerns, of especially in the Western US. Now we're really struggling with the sort of extreme fires that we have had with finding and having genetically appropriate seed available. But we also lack knowledge. There's a lot of plants in our native floras that we just don't know very much about. We don't know what their germination conditions are. We don't know what the biotic and abiotic requirements are for those seeds to germinate. And that has led to poor establishment of forbs that has resulted in low diversity on restored sites. So the restored sites that we currently kind of have as models really aren't that fantastic. I think maybe that's a little bit different for some of the west side prairies. I think a lot more work has been done. But over here on the east side, where our sort of prairie restoration efforts are still kind of in their infancy, or at least maybe still in, middle school, there's a lot we still don't know. Our initial pilot site has provided some mixed results for us as well. So when we began this project, there was a lot of conversation about how we would go about doing it. And we opted to try some experimental approaches using a 13-acre pilot site. So we did we did some biochar amendments at differing rates. We did seeding mixes at different rates and at different levels of diversity. And the long and short of that is that we got some good information, but we found out that there's really differences in the success of natives that are based solely on exposure and elevation. But those troughs in our prairie, undulating prairie ecosystems are really presenting a problem because they're holding water longer, and that is making the weeds fiercely competitive. And so we are having to rethink what our wholesale approach will be for this restoration on the basis of the insights that we've gained from our initial pilot site. So our next steps are going to be really to try to seed the whole site in native grasses. And what that's going to do is allow us to continue to apply herbicides. Now, I know that that doesn't sound very savory to everyone, but the weed pressures over here are enormous, and we're just not going to be able to get anything to happen if we can't come in and spray out those annual weedy species that are so problematic for us. So grass seed is typically more commercially available, and we are typically able to get more genetically appropriate seed because there has been so much of a demand for grass seed from the BLM and other agencies that are seeking to restore wildlands after fire. And then that portion of our study is actually funded. So we're excited to go forward with this in the fall to do a grasses only seeding. And then what we're envisioning doing is establishing some forb islands where we can come in and target specific areas, apply seed from our seed increase garden, or grow plugs for difficult to germinate species and put plugs out onto these forb islands where we can manage a smaller area a little bit more intensely and see whether we can generate that kind of movement out from those forb islands. So that's the current status of the restoration.
Just a quick question,
So,
Robin, on respect to those seeds. I mean, so you're saying because of BLM restoration efforts, right? There's been a lot of seed development, grass seed development for native species, for truly native species. That
yes,
you would desire.
and actually, genotype specific seed, right? So, for example, BFI, which is a big grower in the Moses Lake area, they grow out for BLM. They grow a lot of seed for BLM, and they have genetically appropriate strains of Idaho fescue and blue bunch wheatgrass in particular. Those are our sort of big players. So those we can get.
And so
Yeah.
are they, I'm presuming they're not Roundup ready. They've, so I'm presuming
No,
you're,
no, no, no.
yeah,
No,
yeah.
no, they're not Roundup ready, but we wouldn't be applying Roundup. We would be applying just a broadleaf. So I think dicamba is what most of the farmers use for broadleaf around here. So because we're in wheat country, so we've got all kinds of herbicides for specific crops. Anyway.
So you're sterilizing the soil and then putting the grass seed in. Is that right?
Well, we're not sterilizing the soil. There's no way to do that.
Okay.
We have the site in what's called chem fallow right now, where we are just applying herbicide. So it's just receiving herbicide treatment to keep everything down. And then in the fall, we'll come in and we'll drill our native grass seed. But what having grasses only means is that come spring next year, when all of the weedy broadleaves show up, we can come through again and spray them out and try to minimize those weedy brassicas and those weedy asters like stinking chamomile and Cimbrium altissima, all of the kinds of broadleaf weeds that come in. Will it help us with the weedy annual grasses? No. So that'll be something we're just going to have to watch and see what happens. So it may be that if we get a weird year and we don't have enough moisture for our natives to get established in the preceding fall, we might end up with a lot of cheatgrass. So it's a moving target. And like I said, the process for doing restoration, especially at large scale, is still it's like I said, it's still a process that we're learning. So, are there any other questions other than what Kelly had to ask before I keep going here?
Because by the way, the other observation I wanted to share is that I appreciate the fact that you're talking, this is a years long effort, right? This is that no quick fixes for these programs. Yeah.
No, this is not an overnight sensation. I will retire and others will take over and we will still be figuring out how to get this to happen for sure. Yeah, this is not trifling, which I hope is providing some ammunition for all of you listening to recognize how critically important it is for us to conserve what we have, right? So, anything that is offering a threat to natural areas that are relatively intact is something that we as plant and naturalist enthusiasts need to be keenly aware of, that it isn't easy to fix the problems that we incur. It just isn't. The ecosystem dynamics are so complex. It really is rocket science. Ecology really is rocket science. And so we want to keep what we have because we otherwise don't have any capacity we don't have a chance, right? So some would argue that we don't have a chance anyway, and I tend to be an optimist, but I'm appreciative of the fact that we still have a long ways to go and we're still on a very steep learning curve. Okay, so what you're looking at in this picture is the students up at the Seed Increase Garden affectionately call this God's plan, which is that would be me. I'm the one that drew this, but this is where we're going with the seed increase garden. So you're looking at, again, I don't, if you guys can see my cursor, this is our research greenhouse. And then there's a fenced in area around that sort of was doing nothing except growing weeds. And so I co-opted it in 2020 with a student, the student I showed you who finished her master's in 2022. She and I wrote a grant, and we collected seeds from more than 9 sites from within about a 20-mile radius of campus. These were sites that had a good percentage of remnant native vegetation. And we collected over 100 species from each of those 9 sites. We pooled those seed, we cleaned those seed, and then we started to grow out these mixed collections in rows. So you're looking down on sort of our initial, this was our initial area that we planted, and now we've added rows up here and rows back here. So we're continuing to add to this as we go along. Still from these initial seed collections in 2020, but what we're able to do now is harvest and store seed from our grow sites here now for the prairie restoration site, for research needs, for course needs, and then eventually, as this seed increase garden continues to produce seed, we'll be able to provide seed resources for any kind of community needs as well. But it's been really fun and a true labor of love, first and foremost, to collect all of those seed, but subsequently to see that seed used. So for example, one of my graduate students now, in fact, 2 of my graduate students now are going to be using seed that we've harvested from the increase garden for their master's research projects. So this is again, another ongoing component, and it's one that I have been chiefly in charge of because I'm not an ecologist, so I haven't participated in, and I did not participate very much in what the pilot experiments were, the pilot site experiments were. That's just not my thing. I grow plants. So what I've been otherwise involved in as sort of an offshoot of the seed increase garden is trying to figure out how to get better germination success for some of these plants that we love and want in our restorations, but that we're currently batting 0 on in terms of getting them to actually grow. So one of those is Western stone seed. This is Lithospermum ruderale. You're looking at a picture of that plant. It's really lovely. It's got this beautiful sort of buttery yellow inflorescence and kind of gray-green leaves. It's in the borage family, so it's hairy and kind of nasty, but that's okay. It's a prairie plant. And we've been interested in understanding how we can get better germination success. So this began with a student several years ago, Savannah Schaefer, and it was recently picked up by a student, Anna Carroll. In fact, I'm going to show you in the next slide that she just presented her research poster at our EWU Research and Creative Works Symposium. And we were able to discern from her research and Savannah's research, what we ultimately tested was what could facilitate better germination. And so we used untreated fruits. So I refer to them as seeds, but I want you to appreciate that in this particular plant, the seed is actually encased in an indehiscent fruit. So it's that indehiscent fruit that's actually falling to the ground. And oftentimes that poses a problem to germination. So, and especially in a plant called stone seed, it means that that fruit is a really hard case, and it needs to either be degraded over time or somehow abraded, or we can try treating it with chemicals that are known, or hormones that are known to help break dormancy. And that primary hormone that helps to break dormancy is gibberellic acid. So Anna treated seeds from several different populations collected over multiple years to an abrasion treatment, a GA treatment, an abrasion with GA treatment, and then just control. So those were her 4 treatment groups. And then all of them were cold stratified, because we knew from the work that Savannah did that we needed X number of days of cold stratification. So we cold stratified with our treatments, and then Anna pulled trays out and monitored germination. And what we found is that GA is very good at assisting in germination with this species. Abrasion, or scarification, as the sort of official term is, also works, and both of them together work as well. We thought that abrasion and GA together would be the most successful of our treatments, but it turned out that GA alone was actually better. Okay, so whoopsie, go back here. So this is Anna and I, and this is her poster. So here is the here's the poster illustrating. This was our control, if you guys can see this. And then this was just abrasion of that fruit coat. This was just GA, and this was both. So there wasn't a significant difference between just GA and both, but there was a significant difference between abrasion and GA. So we know that GA really facilitates the germination of this species. And then this was a little exercise that she did to see whether the time of our collecting mattered, like do seeds remain viable over several years? And it turns out that over the time frame of the populations that we collected from, it really didn't matter. This was the most recent, so they had a little bit of a higher germination success than earlier collected, but not anything significant. So that was what Anna found. And then the other thing that we found when we did work, when Savannah and I did work, we sterilized the seeds or the fruits in advance of doing any kinds of treatments or tests on them. And when Savannah did her study, she ended up getting a lot of mold and fungal growth. And so that caused me to wonder whether or not Western stone seed have fruit endophytes, whether there's actually organisms living in the fruit coat or the seed coat or the seed itself that are either antagonistic or beneficial to germination. And we know that endophytes are very common in lots of plants. They're common in lots of organisms, period. But I had these 2 kids, Harley and Cheyenne, look into that. This is just this was a study they did in my undergraduate course 270, biological investigations. That's where we first started this. And I had too much going on this spring to have them repeat this experiment in time for our symposium. But you're looking at their results, and they were really clean results. And we got a fungus that grew, and it was a single kind of fungus. So we had very good sterile technique in this experiment. And so we also, and we grew we split each of these fruits in half. We separated the fruit coat from the interior, the seed itself, and we grew those plates under a bacterial specific media and a fungal specific media. And we got a really specific bacterium and we got a really specific fungus. But what we need to do is repeat that experiment with higher replication. And then what we need to do is come in and sample the fungi and sample the bacteria and use a molecular genetic approach to discern what those actually are and whether we can identify them to known seed endophytes. And then once we know that, we can begin to explore whether or not they're antagonistic or protagonistic with respect to germination. So this is the start of something I think is pretty darn cool as well. And this is a plant that I don't know whether you guys on the west side would know it. It is Clematis hirsutissima, or sugar bowls as the common name is. It's a beautiful plant. I know that this looks rather shaggy, but it's just gorgeous. The first time I saw it, I thought I'd just gone crazy that there was this beautiful, hairy little clematis that wasn't vining. It's a perennial herbaceous thing. It's not little, actually. It can get quite large. So this is another one that shows up in prairie ecosystems to the south of us. I've never found it north up where we are. And prior to really looking for it, I thought it was relatively rare, but now it turns out I live in Tico, which is a little town in Whitman County, and I've got plants that I can check on regularly that are less than 4 miles from the house, growing in little patches, little remnant patches between the Farmington Road and an old rail bed, but often right on the side of the road. And clematis is another one of those genera is another genus that has very complicated germination processes. So my student Grace Ogle attempted to better understand how can we decrease cold stratification requirements for this plant. And the rationale for that is just simply how can we, again, speed up this process of germination, because it turns, and this has sort of ancillary import, because over here, I really am beginning to notice a decrease in the number of days of sufficient cold stratification that will ultimately impact or impinge upon the future of these plants. So it's kind of a race against time to figure out what they really need, figure out if we can do some end runs around it just so that we can conserve these species. So Grace set out to see whether she could shorten the number of days of cold stratification for this particular plant. And so what she did was plated seed and subject them to cold stratifications of 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, and 84 days, something significantly longer. So she would put these in the fridge and then pull plates out and see if things would germinate once she pulled them out to room temperature. And she also presented a poster at our recent symposium. And you see a lot of text on that poster because we batted 0. She also used gibberellic acid, and we didn't get anything to germinate. So this sort of sets us back to ground zero, because we don't know whether there's something about this is the same situation where it's actually an indehiscent fruit. So the next thing we're going to do with this study is actually remove the fruit coat and see if the physiological dormancy is actually in the seed itself, or whether it's something that's being imposed by the seed coat. Because we were surprised that GA didn't have any effect on this. So we're going to play a little bit more with what's going on here. I'm really delighted that Grace, who has been an undergraduate in our program, decided to go to graduate school. So she'll be joining my research lab as a graduate student next year. So I don't know whether she'll continue to work on clematis or not, but I'm excited to have her. She's a great young scholar. And the jury is still out on how we can increase or get this clematis to germinate. So there's a lot of other things that could be affecting it too. So for one thing, these populations are really fragmented, and it may very well be that we're looking at plants that need outcrossing, so they could be experiencing inbreeding depression from being in these tiny, tiny little populations where they're only being able to reproduce with their relatives. We don't really know. So this is one I'll continue to track too, because I really want this. I really want to get this plant in cultivation, and I think as gardeners, you'll appreciate that. It's just a really cool plant. I hope you will anyway. I think it's gorgeous. So then with respect to my current graduate students, let me stop for a minute here and check the chats. I see you've got some here.
I've just been posting some of the just some simple links, right? You know, to
Okay.
know what these things are. By the way,
Wonderful.
I was interested just as we talk about these things. I mean, this is you know, I'm concerned this. I was going to bring up climate change, but I mean, you were talking about the cold stratification issue here. But I mean, is that you know, what other aspects of climate change do you feel are impacting, you know, the resilience of native species here, beyond just warming trends?
Well, I guess I would say probably competition from weedy invasive species. So, you know, we never had a shortage of weedy invasive species at the outset, but as things warm, we're just going to get more. We're just going to get we're going to get increasing waves. And there's just, and then the existing, you know, the existing weeds that are here are really establishing, and I don't see them going anywhere. I was actually down in the Columbia River Gorge just about a week ago, and I took a hike up Dog Mountain, and I had last visited Dog Mountain when I was a postdoc at Portland State over 15 years ago. And I got up to that first little bench. I don't know if any of you guys have climbed that. It's a pretty, it's a grisly little route.
It really is. I still I threw up on that bench, by the way. That's that's another story about too much lactose in my stomach at that point, right? You know, but yeah, but go on.
Yeah, so I got up to that little bench and I was shocked by how much Poa bulbosa had invaded that little prairie that's right there at the top, that first bench. And I was pleased when I got further up that it still looked pretty good. But again, I mean, that's one it's just not going to go away. And it's so, it's just so capable. It's so capable. I mean, it's here to stay. I mean, I don't know.
So you're
Anyway.
finding that, even as these weeds move in, they're far more resilient, right, than the
They
native
they
species.
really are, and they really are, and it's just how resilient our natives will be is remains to be seen. But again, when unless we know something about how to grow them, we're just not gonna be able to even help the problem.
And that's another takeaway. You're clearly presenting here is that how much we still don't know about
Oh yeah.
about these natives.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess, I mean, when we circulate in groups of plant lovers, it feels like there's a lot of us, but in the grand scheme of things, there really aren't a lot of us. And that's another problem. So I think in part that's why, for me, this is a message of hope to you guys that there are these young people here in, universities that are caring to study this stuff. And the Prairie Restoration Project has been a boon for us and a boon for our graduate program in particular, because these two young women came here specifically because of our Prairie Restoration Project. Katie Cole came, she was working, she was doing conservation work in Hawaii. She came here. She had lots of different choices of places where she could do her graduate work for a master's. She chose to come to Eastern Washington University. We've been really successful in getting funding for this first aspect of her study. She's interested in, this is where the sort of pants before shoes comes into play here as my title, because what we found and what I took away from our initial pilot site was that, and I think this is a reflection also of some of the work I'm doing looking at germination. There is this very, very rich communication, this very rich dialogue that's happening between underground resources and above ground participants. So we know that native species can shunt upwards of 70% of their photosynthates into the underground biome because they are fostering relationships with bacteria and fungi. So arbuscular mycorrhizal fungi are plant obligate fungi. They form little trees, they form little structures within plant roots, in the cells of plant roots. And what they do is they garner phosphorus in particular, but they also expand the availability and the surface area for the acquisition of water, and they're getting photosynthates from the plant in return. And they're hypothesized as having been responsible for plants getting out of the water and onto the terrestrial landscape to begin with. But we know that over 80% of terrestrial plant families have relationships with these arbuscular mycorrhizal fungi. So what Katie and I are looking at is, what does that diversity, what does arbuscular mycorrhizal fungal diversity look like in remnant prairie sites compared to CRP, Conservation Reserve Program lands that were formerly farmed that have been taken out of cultivation but not restored to native species? And then what do they look like in actively farmed land? And that's going to be really telling, because we want to know how different those communities are. We want to know if those communities can recover if the land is not disturbed. And and the long and short of this is that when we think about how we think about native plants as being tough because they're adapted to the conditions that are specific to the regions where we're living, but they have a support system, and they're just like any of the rest of us. If we take that support system away, it shouldn't surprise us if they struggle. And I think that's really what that's what I'm coming to understand, is that if we're not restoring the soils and we're not restoring the associated representative taxa that reside in the soil that support our native plants, they're not going to thrive.
So this will be your next big invention, right? Is it arbuscular mycorrhizal fungi, right? As a whole new business venture, right?
Well, so interestingly enough, there are people out there who have it's America. So they have proprietary strains of soil amendments. They're not going to tell you what's in them. And in fact, one of those companies is in Cheney, local to Cheney. And they've wanted to generate some collaborations with us. And fortunately, I'm working with, and part of April's advising committee is a soil microbiologist, or not a soil microbiologist, but a soil ecologist. And we just want to say, we wanted to just say, listen, wait. We don't know what it looks like at all. So before we start adding a bunch of crap in the typical fashion, let's actually find out what we've got. Let's establish a baseline before we start experimenting. So Katie's looking at AMF fungal diversity across a land use gradient. And the other thing she's really interested in doing is a greenhouse study. So she's going to ask if including AMF is going to increase the success of natives against invasives. So that's going to be a competition experiment that she does in the greenhouse. So those are the two aspects of Katie's research. She's incredibly ambitious, this kid. I just adore her. She's got a really big agenda, and she will be presenting her thesis prospectus this week. So it's a very busy week for me. And then the other student who is amazing is April Hersey. And in conversations with April, one of the things that I'm also really interested in as I've turned to be thinking about soil is a recognition of the fact that there's this thing called regenerative agriculture, and those farmers outside of a very strong university support network are doing a lot of great research. They're just trying to figure it out because they're sick of spending all of their money to buy chemicals and to buy fertilizers. And they're recognizing that the contribution of their approach, their lifestyle, is generating downstream environmental impacts. I know some of these farmers, they're fantastic people. And I said to April, there are these two groups that aren't communicating. There's this incredible group of rogue farmers who have developed all of these hypotheses. They're doing all of their own experiments outside of sort of university, regulations. And as a result of that, ecologists who are working in restoration don't know what the hell they're doing. I happen to know that because I have been interested in sustainability. I have been interested in agriculture. I live in the middle of wheat country. I love food and I love to grow things. So I've been thinking about it, and I said, hey, why don't we try some of these regenerative agricultural practices in our prairie restoration? Why don't we actually see if using naturally or a locally produced compost tea that should have all the composite fungal and bacterial strains as well as local nematodes and protozoa. What if we actually try that and see if we can encourage or improve establishment in our difficult to establish native forbs? So that's what April is working on. Very exciting. She's got plots on the actual current prairie restoration site, and we got those in a little bit late, but we got them in late February, so we're hopeful that she'll get some good results. But yeah, that's what's happening in Robin research world. And so I actually have a whole additional talk on seed collecting, but I think I will stop here.
Questions or comments for Robin? In fact, I was posting the article. It just showed up in the newsletter, the EW newsletter about the prairie rest. There was an April article, an article just last month talking about the restoration project. And
Yeah.
I was impressed by some of the very near term results, I guess, as I also posted in chat. It looks like you're going to converting a lot of the lawn landscape at the university. You know,
yeah, that's a whole nother thing. Yeah, that's a whole nother thing. So much to do.
But this is really exciting. Understanding the fact that you made a key point I really want to underscore is that the fact that native plants rely upon this system, this network of support of, either, be it fungi, be it, be it other things that we're not thinking about, or certainly we're not conscious about in most cases.
Yeah.
Questions, comments for Robin?
Yeah, anybody.
Who else? Has anybody here been to Cheney and seen the restoration site? Are we also focused here on the west that we never crossed the mountain?
Mm. Kelly, I have a comment. NRCS is doing a lot of work with farmers with WSU Extension on regenerative farming, and that is all about getting compost into the soil so these microorganisms can build a substantial ecosystem there. And that's where it's at to grow things.
Yeah.
So I be still my heart that you brought that up. And I think there are a lot of farmers out there who do know what the hell they're doing under the direction of NRCS and WSU Extension. Not to negate what your comments, but there is a lot of work going on. And unfortunately, a lot of the huge processors aren't a party to this, but there are a lot of farmers in Washington State who are taking on this challenge and really getting good results.
I agree with you, and thank you. I didn't mean to suggest that it was, they were completely rogue. It turns out that there are a lot of farmers that are doing really good stuff, but they are still there is a small arm of WSU that's doing the organic and regenerative, but there is a much bigger and more powerful arm that's still selling chemicals. And that much of the wheat research is still centered on these practices that we know are detrimental to the environment, but at the end of the day, they're detrimental to the continued capacity of the farmers who are using them. And that's the heartbreaking thing for me.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. So I'm all about growing the soil. So
Yeah,
this is, I'm a year into this sort of thing, but it
yeah.
makes total sense to me.
You know what the coolest part of Katie's project is? And one of my colleagues and one of her students tried to do some work in the around Cheney and didn't have good luck trying to get access. But you know, I'm kind of a I'm well, I grew up in farm country, so I speak, I speak Hick. I
Mhm.
speak, the language and I live here in Tico and I have actually managed to make, and I'm also a member of the voluntary stewardship program working group for Spokane County. So I get access to people and we've been able to get access on lands and access to farmers for this AMF project. And I'm really excited about that because that's going to be because that's what I'm saying to them. We don't know. So we can't even tell them, we couldn't even tell them what to add if they wanted to shift because we don't know who the players are. So it may be that we actually find that there are several strains that are of these AMF fungi that are relatively resilient to the disturbance regimes that they currently need to use to farm. But wouldn't that be cool if we could help them figure out how to promote those guys and help them and maybe eventually cut down on some of their inputs?
Mhm. Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah.
Robin, is it then I keep that when you start talking about AMFs and so forth, and I'm wondering, are there genetic diversities amongst the mycorrhizae themselves? Because you see so many soil amendments that are advertised as, hey, we've got all this in here, right? So
Right.
this,
So Kelly, let me ask you this. Are you familiar with probiotics?
yes, yeah, or at
And
least
so,
generally. I'm sorry, yeah, don't
yeah,
test
and
me
if
here.
you look on a bottle of probiotics, what you're gonna see is they've got different species of lactobacillus and bacillo. It's just like above ground. There's a bunch of different species of AMF fungi, a bunch of different genera, multiple species within genera. And then in the same way that we have varieties and subspecies that are typically adapted across a geographic gradient, we will probably see that in the AMF as well.
So are these
So,
as well documented? I mean, for example, should we be aware of what, what species of all this are native to our soils?
well, no, Kelly, and we do not know that. And I would also tell you that because these organisms are plant host obligates,
Mhm.
the way that we're getting the DNA for our analyses is going to be through spores that are in the soil already or from plant roots where they're hanging out. But this is another area where there are fewer people studying fungi, fewer of those still that are studying these AMF fungi. The databases for the species are much smaller. So we will undoubtedly contribute sequences for what we call operating taxonomic units. So sequences that are divergent enough from one another to identify as separate entities that we're not going to be able to assign to a particular species. And partly that will be because they haven't been described. They may be new to science. And we just don't know that. We don't have that much information about them yet.
Again, just frightening how little we know.
Mm.
Well, we like to call that job security in academia. But no, I mean, from a broader perspective, I wish that we knew more. I wish we knew more.
Other questions, other comments here for Robin? This has been incredibly insightful. So I think we're all going to go out and start, gene splicing on it, on whatever, just to see what happens out here. Robin, I want to thank you so very much for taking the time to share with us. Again, I think I remember I described you as our kind of the Doug Tallamy here of the West, but you're at a whole different level than so this is and it's very, by the way, congratulations on the research and the folks, the students that you've attracted to this to this effort here.
It's pretty exciting. I mean, it's funny because I mean, I've been sort of like a feast or famine. It's been feast or famine in my research lab, but I'm definitely experiencing a little bit of a renaissance here, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. So it's fun to share with you guys what's going on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Huge,
You're very,
huge
very
thoughts
welcome.
and thrills. Okay.
And I appreciate, like I said, I'm really committed to the outreach component. That's a big part of it. I think one of the things I think I said when I gave my talk to you guys at Tacoma last year is that there aren't enough of us doing this. So even if you guys are listening and you don't know you're not here, you don't understand everything I'm talking about, you're hearing it and you're getting a feel for it, and we're having this communication, and you can ask questions, and you have a conduit for inquiry, and I just can't emphasize how important that is, especially in our current, political paradigm where science is really like persistently challenged and misunderstood. And I think I see that and I say, that's our fault. That's our fault because we're not doing enough outreach. So I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Robin. It's just been really enlightening.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
So I want to share just one more screen here, and just as recognize here that we move on to next month, right? Wendy Sue Wheeler will be with us, and she runs WSU Extension's pesticide program. So this very consistent with the June training that we talked about earlier regarding pesticide and pesticide management. So this is so I want to encourage everyone to be thinking about June 11th, right, for our Master Gardener Foundation Zoom at that time, and then of course followed by the 15th. So it'd be a very important June coming up. But Robin, thank you so very much. We've learned a lot. Now we have whole new appreciation for the east side of the state here. So
Well, you're welcome to come over and visit anytime. And in fact, Spokane County just threw up a great opportunity workshop with Ray Arcieto and Anthony Carrillo, who and Christine, can't remember her last name, from WSU. They're going to be talking about regenerative agriculture. So if anybody wants to come on over and see the east side and listen about regenerative agriculture, get on the Spokane County Conservation District's website and sign up.
We're so excited to come over to your place because you have heat units, right? Actual heat units over there. So
okay, thanks a lot, you guys. I'm going to step out, and again, happy to have had time to share with you.
Any other comments for the good of the order for everyone? Thank you, Robin. Any comments from anybody? If not, I will go ahead and